Boy, oh boy, it's amazing how things can turn around. Sean Fain came out today from the UAW and is excited about what President Trump is doing in terms of the auto industry. These tariffs are going into place on April 2nd. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I have some friends that don't agree with what's going on here, and I have others that are, in the auto industry that actually understand this a little bit better than most. So let's talk about it, and then we'll come back. Welcome on back to TK's Garage. I should say we're going to talk about it right after this, but anyways, we're here. So there was an interview with Senator Moreno on Fox News. I'm going to put that up here in a second for you to see. But I just want to explain these tariffs. Yes, Stellantis' stock is down for GM. Rivian and Tesla are up because they make most of their vehicle, like over 90% of them are built, manufactured, parts, all that stuff right here in America. So they're not going to be affected by tariffs. General Motors is probably, out of the big three Americans, are going to, and I know they say Stellantis isn't American anymore, but I digress, is going to take a big hit because they're right at 50% or 52% or 54%. So they're almost as American as, say, BMW. Now, let me talk about Stellantis for a minute. Everybody's panicking because they're saying, oh, okay, so all these trucks now, and they're going to still build some 1500s in Mexico, they're going to have to pay tariffs of 25% on all these vehicles, right? And then if the other stuff doesn't change and the waiver of tariffs is released, we're looking at like 50% tariff, and the consumer pays that, right? Yes and no. It's a very nuanced subject and a very nuanced thing. I'm going to get into it slightly, though. But I'm going to tell you that I have a feeling that Stellantis is not going to pay those tariffs. And that's because they're going to agree. We will see an announcement. This is why they're pumping out what they can now. We will see an announcement where Stellantis is going to move production of their Ram 2500 and the 3500 back to the United States somewhere, whether it's new plants, old plants that have been like shuttered for a long time. Maybe they spread that production out with extra shifts at other places. I understand that 2500 and 3500 is a special case. It's not like they can build it on the same line as, say, a 1500, but it is what it is. But needless to say, it's going to happen. And right now, Stellantis is ramping up Hemi production. And we've talked about this before. I dropped a couple of videos on it yesterday, but the Insider did, that, while Dundee may get the Hemi at some point, it's not going to happen for like 12 to 18 months. I just don't see, they haven't been able to build a hybrid four-cylinder or put that line together to build those in 3 years. And you're going to tell me they're going to put an entire tooled up line for the 5.7 Hemi together and start producing those engines in July, which is what the schedule calls for, by July, and we're at the almost at the beginning of April. I just don't see it. But anyways, let me show you this quick interview with Moreno and what they were talking about on Fox News this morning, and then we'll come back.
Well, first of all, nobody should be surprised. President Trump campaigned on this promise to restore American automotive manufacturing here in America. And it's a very simple premise. If you sell your cars here, those cars should be made here. It's interesting to see the reaction from the EU. They don't let our cars even go there at all. So look, they wouldn't like it if all of a sudden the vast majority of the cars sold in their countries were imported from America. Our workers were destroyed through these terrible trade policies. We gutted out communities. We have to rebuild these communities. I applaud President Trump for finally taking decisive action that will restore the American manufacturing might in the auto industry here in America.
Let's take a look at some of the numbers that you just mentioned. U.S. automotive parts manufacturing over the past 24 years here in the United States down 34%. And let's hear from Sean Fain once again, talking about what you just mentioned in terms of the trade deal, this one NAFTA. Watch.
Since NAFTA's inception and other horrible trade laws in the last 3 to 4 decades, we see 90,000 manufacturing facilities leave the United States. And they're doing it not because it's the right thing. They're doing it, they're destroying communities, all in the name of driving a race to the bottom and exploiting workers in other countries, you know, for poverty wages, poverty conditions.
So, Senator, I think one of the questions that comes up here, and I think President Trump just touched on it in those comments, is how quickly all of this can happen. And he suggested in that soundbite that there are facilities that are not at full capacity or that have been abandoned for overseas manufacturing. What can you tell us about that? How fast it can be?
He's absolutely right. We have a 6 million square foot manufacturing facility in Lordstown, Ohio, that used to employ 10,000 UAW workers. It's completely, for the most part, empty. That thing can be turned on in a matter of a few months. We have plants all over America that are underutilized, either operating on 1 or 2 shifts that can go to a 3-shift model pretty quickly. We have some car companies that are making cars that aren't very popular. Car companies can come in and buy that excess production, but it can't be a fight. This is America standing up for Americans. This is a president who's always said and always will have the back of the American worker, finally. And I think that's what makes President Trump such an incredible president. He campaigned down in Martha, so there should be no surprise.
One quick question. It's interesting that the unions in UAW in Ohio backed Sherrod Brown, who you ran against and you beat. And now we see the unions rallying behind this action. But union workers make a lot more, obviously, than workers in Mexico. Put this up. And this is not exactly apples and apples, I should point out, but it's the best comparison we could find. $30 an hour in the United States, $3 an hour for car manufacturing workers in Mexico. How's that going to, translate into the cost of cars here?
Well, first of all, you're going to see some changes in currency devaluation. You'll see what the car companies can absorb. But us having policies that allow these companies to go out and chase slave wages and destroy communities, that year is over. And I think one of the things that President Trump has done is refocused us that the most important thing we can do here in Washington, D.C. is advocate and fight for working Americans. And look, the union did support my opponent, Sherrod Brown, but he had been here for 50 years and did nothing. So I think what a lot of union members saw, and now union leaders are seeing, is that these Democrats, their words were hollow. They said the right things, but their actions didn't match. Now what we're seeing is Republicans that are fighting for working Americans.
So, of course, everybody will be watching to see those actions as they play out over the next 18 months or so. I would imagine this is going to turn out to be an issue in the midterm elections for people. So it's going to be fascinating to watch this. But as you say, enthusiasm from the unions about this is expressed in a large way today. Good to see you, Senator Moreno. Thank you very much.
Good to see you. And Michigan is going to be bright red in a couple of years. You mark my words.
We'll be watching. We'll be covering it all. Thank you very much, Senator. So political bias at NP.
So as I've stated before, Moreno is literally the auto czar at this point, right? He's kind of like the go-to guy for the Trump administration when it comes to cars. The unions are loving these tariffs. And the president made it really clear. Hyundai's not paying tariffs because they've promised to open a massive facility, and they've made a promise on paper of an investment with the administration. That's what Stellantis is going to have to do to avoid these tariffs. Here's the news flash, though. The Hornet, they're going to pay tariffs. The any vehicle that they manufacture and they import that they are not making plans to bring back here, like say maybe the Dodge Charger and the Caravan, they're going to pay tariffs. So it's going to get crazy fast. I know a lot of people are screaming, oh, this is going to cause a recession or this could bankrupt the companies. Nah. Look, the companies, and as you can see in that video clip, right, a UAW represented employee is getting like $36 an hour on average, right? while an employee in Mexico is getting $3. Look, I know everybody cries and has been complaining about quality. Listen, man, a lot of those engines that had problems were built in Mexico, and I'm talking about the Demon 170, okay? I know some people like their 2500s. They don't have any problems with it, build quality-wise. Me, personally, I think if you're giving people back their jobs and they have job security and they're getting $36 an hour, I think that truck's going to be built a little bit better than the person that's getting paid $3 an hour, you know, basically working slave wages and having to work, you know, insane, unrealistic hours on an emergency schedule like what's going on at Saltillo right now. So I think it's interesting. I don't think the tariffs are going to affect, you know, the auto industry the way some people claim. I don't see that, but we'll have to see how things progress in the first month and a half to 2 months as this comes into effect. I think it is a big stick, and it is going to cause a lot of manufacturers to move here, which means more jobs. So the auto industry, and we can finally turn the arrow around of U.S. jobs going away and more jobs coming back for those people that like to work in the auto industry. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Give the video a big thumbs up if you like what I do. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. What do you guys think about what Senator Moreno said? Let me know. I will have an update for you guys on a bill that he also proposed, Transportation Freedom Act. I'll try to get it up for you before the end of this evening. But anyways, stay tuned. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And as always, stay petty, my friends.